The chaos in the antique market gave Qingning an opportunity, but little did she know that it would come with a sense of responsibility. In the market of unknown dynasties, selling foxes, young fur, very soft, wearing a fur cub, Qingning let out a roar. Tianlalu, as she opened her eyes, she faced the reality of turning into a fur collar. Is this reasonable? Is it about to be sent at the beginning? Qingning felt speechless and choked. Fortunately, Qingning followed an extremely beautiful golden lord who shoveled feces. Although the world inexplicably began to stop blooming, but Qingning, who had transformed back, slowly solved the problem by relying on the golden lord to shovel feces. She also received praise from the heavenly way and was conferred the title of God. Although Qingning was extremely disgusted, she could only take it on. As her defecating official, she must be the strongest king in the world, so when infrastructure is developed and a strong country is developed, there can only be one voice in this world, and that is the voice of the defecating official. Qingning raised her chin. It was known that the excrement remover was hers, so his belongings were naturally hers. Her territory, how could she allow it to be so tattered? It's absolutely not allowed. Chapter 1. Coming to the antique market for class. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Dear, are you reading novels? What kind of brain should you bring? Let go. Leave it here, take it with you when you leave. The capital city, as the capital of a country and also the busiest city, is bustling with crowds and bustling with traffic. At this moment, in the busiest and bustling antique market in the capital, people are bustling and jostling one after another. Classmates, today's practical class, we will be taking it here. The man speaking was wearing black framed glasses, in his 40s, and even wearing a shirt and black pants couldn't stop his refined demeanor. Standing in front of him were a group of young girls and boys who were in their prime of youth. Teacher, are we having class here today? A sunny and cheerful-looking boy stared blankly at the stone wall in front of him, with 7 large gilded characters on it, Panjiayuan second-hand market. A group of classmates also had the same stunned expression. They really didn't expect that in their sophomore semester, the first class would be held at the largest antique market in Beijing, and for a moment, they felt as if they were living in a dream. Isn't it? The school is so strong. Even though we are from the history department, we need to know more about antiques and other things. It's not that bad either. Let's go to the antique market for classes. A boy wearing black framed glasses, although he said so, his eyes were full of excited expressions, obviously with a split heart. Oh, you know what? This is the first class of sophomore year, and the teacher came here to give us a head start. What does it mean, Xiaomawei? This is tradition. A classmate looked at the teacher talking confidently ahead in confusion and asked in a low voice. Hey, I heard this is a tradition in the history department of Huada University, where students are given a challenge every year, or rather, draw a big cake for the students. After all, our history department, although it is a big department, but you should know that after graduation, there aren't really many people who study history, isn't that right? The teacher is not allowed to draw a big cake to tempt the students. This year is Panjiayuan. I heard that in my sophomore year last year. I went to an archaeological site. Classmate, your message is really insightful. I admire it, said the people beside me with a look of admiration. With this statement, the student who had just popularized science suddenly became excited and showed a bright smile. That's right, I'm a person who claims to be knowledgeable, and there's nothing I don't know about in school. Hee, really, that's quite impressive. The students around could only smile awkwardly, feeling speechless. Why did they even become proud? Qingning, this school is quite interesting, said a sweet-looking girl with a gossipy expression, listening to the discussions of her classmates around her. He reached out and pulled at a girl standing next to her. The girl looks about 18 or 19 years old, with a small and delicate oval face, fair and radiant, with skin like condensed fat, like peeled eggs. Her lips are red and teeth are white, and she is graceful and colorful. The clear and transparent eyes, shining with hope and a hint of charm, seem to evoke a deep sadness. Qingning, what's wrong with you? The sweet girl was stunned and didn't react when she saw her roommate, feeling a bit strange. "Ah, I'm fine, sweetheart, don't worry," Qingning forced out a smile and comforted her impatient roommate. "Huh, are you not sleeping well? Look, black circles under your eyes are all coming out." My best friend sweetly looked at her fair and green face, her increasingly clear blue and purple eyes, feeling a little heartbroken. How could such a beautiful face be tossed around like this? As a top-notch beauty dog, her heart hurt so much. She looked at her best friend Qingning with a sorrowful expression, as if she had committed some serious crime. Qingning unconsciously touched her eye sockets. Is it already so obvious? A burst of sadness hit her heart. I couldn't help but grip my phone tightly, and the screen lit up. It was loaded with a test report from the Capital People's Hospital. After a series of inexplicable data reports, there is a summary sentence for inspection. After testing, this specimen is diagnosed with advanced liver cancer. It is recommended to be hospitalized for treatment as soon as possible. Qingning lowered her head and looked at the confirmation letter on her phone, feeling that her entire life was hopeless. Liver cancer, still in its advanced stage, has already been sentenced to death, or is it the death penalty for not knowing how long she can survive? But she is only 19 years old. Although her life has just begun, is it about to end? Qingning couldn't accept it for a moment, and her eyes were full of confusion. At this moment, the teacher above also happened to have finished talking about the history of Pan Jiayuan, coughing, clapping my hands, and looking down at the students below. Classmates, today I came here to show them, although everything here is fake, it also has great reference value. The students standing in front of the teacher were speechless for a moment. What is the significance of learning from them? They are all fake. Classmates, don't underestimate these fake goods. The current counterfeit craftsmanship can perfectly present the charm of antiques, as if they are fake or real. It's more than enough to be used as a specimen for class. The teacher saw this group of young and inexperienced classmates with a dull expression on their faces, smiled helplessly, and turned to talk about another topic. Classmates, now that the topic of reincarnation through time is enduring, the question arises, if you have traveled through time, how will you survive in ancient times? The teacher sneered. Hey, teacher, when you talk about this, I'm really excited. Think of me, Li Zhuangzhuang. I've read countless great works from time to time. If I had traveled through time, I would definitely have been honored as a king and a prime minister, said a boy named Li Zhuangzhuang with a proud expression on his face. Yo, it's okay, Bai Shaosheng. The classmate next to him looked at Li Zhuangzhuang with a surprised expression on his face. Li Zhuangzhuang chuckled. Ah, Li Zhuangzhuang is very ambitious, so as a student in the history department, if you study history well, maybe after crossing over time, you can really be honored as a king and minister. The teacher smiled dumbfounded, but there was no intention of scolding Li Zhuangzhuang for not doing his job properly. Li Zhuangzhuang scratched his head and suddenly realized that he had become an excuse for the teacher to persuade them to study. He couldn't help but smile silently. The teacher saw everyone present and led the students towards the market. Qingning, on the other hand, was completely disoriented and couldn't muster any energy. She only walked on instinct. She was thinking why she still had to come to class since she couldn't live for a few days anymore. Why not have some good food as suggested online? Her parents passed away in a car accident a few years ago, leaving behind only a considerable amount of car accident compensation and insurance money. Her parents were both orphans with few relatives, so from then on, Qingning no longer had any relatives in this world. If a person is free from ties, it is like a kite without strings, able to drift with the wind and ultimately fall helplessly into the dust. Chapter 2. Opportunities for the Chaos of the Antique Market. You are listening at novelfull.audio. So Qingning no longer has the desire to struggle. After all, there is no good way to treat cancer now. Moreover, if treated, I don't know how much it will cost. Since Qingning thinks so, in the remaining days of life, it's better to eat, drink, and play well. It was not in vain to have been reborn as a human. With this thought, a bright light finally appeared in Qingning's eyes. With a gentle smile, she cleared away the darkness in her heart. Reality cannot be changed, it's better to do what you want to do well. So her footsteps became much lighter, and she finally made up her mind to take a day off from school tomorrow. She was going to mess up. Qingning grabbed Tiantian's hand and followed the teacher to stroll around, listening to the teacher occasionally picking up an ornament. When did this craft first appear, who was the emperor, and what famous ministers were there? The students gradually became interested in listening to the teacher's lecture. Li Zhuang's eyes were wide open, watching the various antiques on the small stalls. His heart was filled with excitement. The classmate next to him looked at the excited Li Zhuang silently and couldn't help but ask, "By Shaosheng, what are you excited about?" Li Zhuang looked at the small stall and his eyes lit up. According to the routine of time travel, these antique stalls are usually the source of treasures. What treasure? The classmate looked bewildered. Hey, that's all there is to it, such as space, systems, various magic weapons, in short, everything is there. Li Zhuang stared at the antiques on the small stall like a wolf and a tiger, with a look of wanting to see through. Hey, there's still space, there's a system. You're just dreaming, you have everything in your dreams. My classmate looked disdainful. Scientific society, but science is important. Li Zhuang gave a pale glance, with a look that you didn't understand. He sighed, and sure enough, everyone was drunk and he woke up alone. Ordinary people can't be silent. Qingning couldn't help but laugh as she listened to the conversation coming from ahead. This student indeed had a rich imagination, although she also reads novels. Reality and novels are still different. Get out of the way, everyone get out of the way. A commotion sounded ahead. What's going on? What's going on? Suddenly, someone looked excitedly ahead, with a face full of gossip. In the bustling market between crowds, a short man who tightly wrapped himself ran recklessly in the market. I don't know what I took in my arms, but the man had a fierce expression on his face and ran straight into me. Behind, there are two bodyguards dressed in black, holding electric batons and vigorously chasing after them. The crowd of onlookers, looking at the shining knife in the short man's hand, couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. Hurry up and dodge to the side. Good guy, this man is carrying such a bright knife. What kind of outlaw is he? The teacher suddenly became anxious. How could this be? He brought his students here. He quickly pushed the students back and said, "Hurry, hurry, hide." The student panicked and quickly retreated. The seller on the nearby stall was also familiar with pulling the stall back, obviously not for the first time. The crowd suddenly became chaotic. Qingning, be careful. Tian reached out and was about to grab Qingning, who had been knocked down, but unfortunately there was not enough time. Qingning knocked and fell onto a nearby stall. The table at the stall where she bought wooden accessories was immediately pushed back. Qingning's hand suddenly pressed against a pile of bead strings. Ah, it hurt so much. Qingning felt as if her hand had been pulled open, as if it was bleeding. However, in the next moment, she felt nothing at all, fast as if it were her own illusion. Qingning's mind hummed with a sound, and she was completely confused. It seemed as if a towering tree had appeared in front of her, soaring into the clouds and blocking the sun, as if there was only one tree in the world. Qingning couldn't help but shake her head. Isn't she liver cancer? Why did she still have hallucinations? A sweet and worried voice came in my ear. Qingning, are you okay? I'm fine. Qingning quickly stood up and comforted Tian with a glance. My thing AI. The vendor behind him looked nervously at the bead string on the stall, realizing that there was nothing wrong, and then he finally felt relieved. Qingning heard the voice behind her and quickly turned around to apologize to the vendor. I'm sorry, I overwhelmed your jewelry. The vendor could only sigh helplessly when he saw the appearance of these students. Hey, forget it, you're also a human being squeezing in. Why can't we catch this plagued thief? The vendor sighed and complained. Qingning smiled awkwardly and said, Uncle, how do you sell this string of beads? The vendor looked at Qingning and said, let's take 50. Qingning thought about crushing someone else's stall. 50 is 50, so she neatly swept 50 yuan, took a string of beads from the stall, and put them on her hand. At this moment, the thief happened to be pinned to the ground by the bodyguard and tied up, seeing that the person had already been tied up. The crowd finally regained its original liveliness, jostling back and forth one after another. The teacher leading the team at Huada couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief and wipe away the sweat that had come out of nervousness on his head. I'm scared to death. Fortunately, nothing happened. Otherwise, I might have to take on a lot of responsibility. With this thought, the teacher suddenly lost the mood to give a lecture. After checking the time, he decided to go back to school. It's not easy to go out today. So the teacher organized the students back to school and announced that there were no more classes left for today. Amidst the cheers of the students, they quickly left. Sweetheart, I have something to do, you go back first. Qingning forced a smile and asked Sweetheart to go back first. Okay, I'll leave first. Tian looked at Qingning and saw that she was indeed busy, so she left on her own. Qingning looked at the early hours and went to the counselor's office with a serious expression on her face. Report, teacher, may I come in? Qingning knocked on the door. Please come in. The counselor was surprised to see Qingning. Qingning, why are you here? The counselor gestured for Qingning to sit down. Qingning bit her lip with some sadness and said, Teacher, I want to take a leave of absence. Taking a leave of absence. Why? Are there any difficulties? The counselor looked bewildered, and the school had just started. Qingning frowned tightly, took out her phone and placed it on the table. The counselor saw this and brought the phone over. Report from Capital People's Hospital. The counselor looked at the report on his phone in confusion. After being tested for liver cancer, he looked up in shock and looked at Qingning. Qingning, is this really true? The counselor looked at the report in his hand, looking incredulous, but looking at the report with the official seal. I have to go. Qingning's eyes were filled with sadness, and tears couldn't help but appear, blurring her eyes. Teacher, the hospital's examination report I received today, the doctor said there is not much hope. Qingning's voice was choked up and she couldn't speak. Chapter 3. Space of the World Tree. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. The counselor looked at Qingning with a regretful expression on her face. How could such a good girl get this kind of disease? He sighed helplessly and said, Qingning, please submit a leave of absence report. Don't give up hope, maybe a miracle will come. Qingning wiped away the tears from her eyes, forced a smile, nodded, and said, Thank you, teacher. Afterwards, under the guidance of her counselor, she wrote a leave of absence report. Qingning, you can leave tomorrow. I hope you can return to campus as soon as possible. Although the counselor knows there is not much hope, they still sincerely wish Qingning a speedy return. Qingning bowed to the counselor without speaking, then quietly turned around and left. I returned to the dormitory all the way, sat quietly for a while, but still regained my energy and tidied up my things. The roommates returned to the dormitory with a smile and said, Hey, Qingning, didn't you go to practice class today? Tian, who came in from behind, also squeezed into the dormitory. Oh, don't mention it. We encountered a thief with a knife, and the teacher was afraid of an accident. We quickly came back. Ah, there's also a thief with a knife, said the roommate with a blank expression. Hey, Qingning, what's wrong with you? Sweetly looked at Qingning's packed luggage in her seat, feeling a bit puzzled. Qingning smiled faintly and said, It's nothing, I have to take a leave of absence for some special reasons, so pack my luggage. What, taking a leave of absence, Qingning, are you? My roommate asked cautiously. I have a difficult disease to cure, and the doctor suggested that I be hospitalized for treatment, Qingning said somewhat bewildered. Is it difficult to treat? Sweet couldn't help but frown. Qingning only smiled and didn't speak, and her phone rang with a ringing sound. My roommates heard the bell and looked at their phones one after another, only to find that it was none other than Qingning's. Qingning looked at her roommates looking at her in confusion, followed their gaze and saw that it was her phone. Phone. She just realized that her phone had just rang. She quickly picked it up and saw a notice of leave from the counselor. Qingning, the notice of suspension has been issued. I am downstairs, please come and take it. Qingning saw this and quickly ran downstairs to the dormitory. Counselor, standing at the bottom of the building with a report, handed it to Qingning when she saw her coming. Qingning, when will you leave school? Just for today, I have already packed up the things. Qingning's eyes were heavy. Okay, I'll take you to the subway station on the way. The counselor smiled softly. Thank you to the counselor. Qingning also knew that the counselor was not really on the way, but just wanted to give herself a ride. Okay, I'll go drive, you go pack your things. The counselor waved to Qingning and left. Qingning went upstairs to pack her luggage, and her roommates helped to take it down together. Qingning, come on, you must treat yourself well. We are still waiting for you to come back, sweetly hugged Qingning and sincerely wished. Qingning nodded with a soft gaze, looked at her roommates, and finally looked at the elegant school, then turned around and left with the counselor. Hey, I don't know what illness Qingning is suffering from, but she needs to take a break from school. Looking at the distant vehicles, they could only hope that Qingning could come back early. The counselor took Qingning to the subway station, but Qingning refused the counselor's offer and left alone with her luggage. 2 hours later, Qingning opened her door and walked in. This is a residential area on the Third Ring Road, located in the capital city, where every inch of land is worth a lot of money. At this moment, Qingning only wanted to have a good night's sleep, so she didn't even have the intention of packing her luggage and just threw herself onto the bed. Oh, I'm going, here, where is this? Qingning said with a bewildered expression on her face. She should have fallen onto the bed. She quickly got up and looked around, surrounded by lush green grass. From a distance, she could see endless black soil. At the end of the land were undulating mountains, and Qingning stared blankly at everything in front of her. I couldn't help but whisper from the depths of my soul, am I crossing over? She turned around to look, and behind her stood a towering tree in the middle of the earth, blocking the sky and sun, rising straight up to the sky. Qingning's pupils shrank and her eyes showed shock. This is that tree. Qingning thought of the terrifying glance in the antique market. She couldn't help but want to go over and take a closer look, thinking in her heart. In the next moment, a hazy flash flashed before her eyes. When Qingning opened her eyes again, she had already arrived under the tree and looked at the strong and vigorous trunk. Qingning couldn't help but touch it. Waves of information rushed through my mind as if I was about to crush Qingning's head. As if it was just a moment, and as if it had been a long time, Qingning finally recovered and lay under the tree, closing her eyes to organize everything in her mind. This is a small world that used to be the habitat for the young world tree. When the world tree grew up, he left this small world to fulfill his duties, and this small world, attached to a seed-like bead, he was thrown towards the world by the world tree, and finally recognized by Qingning. Qingning remembered the pain in the antique market, which seemed like an illusion, and her heart flashed with a clear understanding. Is it really like this? But I'm about to die, what's the use of this space once I take control? Qingning sighed helplessly. No, Qingning's face changed suddenly as she remembered the novels she had pursued over the years. Generally, after obtaining space, the male and female protagonists either travel through time, are reborn, or face the end of natural disasters. Therefore, they do not know what situation they will encounter in the future. Since that's the case, then she needs to prepare well, and a resolute look flashed in Qingning's eyes. Whether it's through rebirth or the end of natural disasters, food, clothing, housing, and transportation are always indispensable. In an instant, countless novels she had read flashed through Qingning's mind, and her thoughts took off. I ran into my parents' room, took out my property certificate, and then took out the bank. Qingning began to take stock of how much property she had that could be monetized. Firstly, it's cash. The compensation for my parents' car accident is 3 million yuan, and I have nearly 7 million yuan in savings over the years. Plus the pocket money I have saved, cash looks like 10 million yuan. Qingning looked at the house. The 140 square meter house was bought by her parents a long time ago. In today's increasingly high housing prices, it is at least 18 million yuan. Plus the compensation from the insurance my parents bought before, I already have 20 million yuan. After thinking for a moment, Qingning put the house on the real estate trading market and requested a full payment transaction. Soon, a call came from the intermediary. Chapter 4. Selling a house. You are listening at novel full.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 5. Grain Garrison. You are listening at novel full.audio. As one of the national grain distribution centers, Yuzhou produces a large amount of grain, oil, and vegetable products every day. These products are collected and then transported to various parts of the country after a short stay. Qingning is currently standing at the entrance of the distribution center, with a rented small box truck behind her. As soon as she arrived, Qingning rushed directly to the largest market without hesitation. After wandering around, I couldn't help but nod and found that the items were indeed very complete. Boss, this is the delivery note. Take a look at how much it costs and give us a discounted price. Qingning, who was familiar with the situation, handed the boss a piece of paper. It says, 1 ton each of flour, corn flour, japonica rice, indica rice, and glutinous rice, 1,000 kilograms of various legumes and 1 ton of miscellaneous grains, 100 barrels of oil each. Let me calculate. The boss picked up the order and clicked on the computer. Boss, do we sell seasonings here? Qingning asked again after seeing that the boss had finished calculating. Ha, then you're asking the right person. Not only do I have access to seasonings, various side dishes, fruits and vegetables, but I also have connections. Do you want to take a look, little boss? Qingning nodded and said, does the boss have a list? Let me take a look. The boss quickly pulled out a folder from under the counter. Qingning took it over, picked up a pen, and began sketching. 1 ton of salt, 50 boxes of various seasonings, 1,000 kilograms of Sichuan pepper seasonings, and 1 ton of all kinds of vegetables, fruits, and vegetables. Various side foods, such as red dates, lotus seeds, almonds, lotus root powder, kudzu root powder, yam powder, dried fruits such as walnuts, melon seeds, pine nuts, magnolia, almonds. There are also seafood products, mushrooms, and pickled vegetables, so let's have some too. Qingning went crazy sketching for a while, finally satisfied and went through all the categories. Boss, you have all the varieties here. I run a supermarket and there can't be anything that customers can't find. Qingning smiled and handed it back. The boss raised his eyebrows and said, the things here are the most comprehensive in the entire northern region. Don't worry, opening a supermarket is more than enough. The boss is obviously extremely confident, and Qingning can only trust the boss. After all, she cannot run the market all over. Where should I transport my things, little boss? Said the grain station owner after calculating the price. Qingning frowned and said, Boss, do you have a short-term rental warehouse here? It's only for a few days. I won't be able to rent a warehouse for just a few days, but I still have an idle warehouse. I'll borrow it from you for now, and you can take it away as soon as possible. Okay, thank you very much, boss. Qingning neatly deposited the zero price into her account. The boss smiled and put the key into Qingning's hand, then told Qingning the address. These things will be ready for you by tomorrow at the latest and stored in the warehouse. The vegetables and fruits are all the freshest, so rest assured. Qingning nodded and left the grain station, driving a small truck and continuing forward. Oh, snack wholesale market. Qingning's eyes lit up, parked her car, and ran into the market. I still chose the largest shopping mall and went in to ask the boss for a product list, outlining it. Nuts, pistachios, summer magnolia, green root fruit, sugar-fried chestnuts, melon seeds, peanuts, walnuts cookie Oreo, dried meat, chicken feet, chicken leg, squid shredded, cold eating rabbit, various small balls, various breads, spicy hot pot, instant noodles, small hot pot, milk drinks, various drinks. Well, when I think of drinks, I'll order a batch of milk tea later. Qingning checked once and left the address to the boss. After settling the bill, she set off for the next destination. In the daily necessities market, there is still a selection process, including toothbrushes, toothpaste, dental cups, towels, soap, wash basins, shampoo, shower gel, bath towel, headscarf, slippers, clothes hanger, and most importantly, sanitary napkins. There are also various bedding, kitchen and bathroom utensils, household appliances, and so on. After buying these, Qingning set off to the cosmetic store and directly bought a bunch of cosmetics and various tools for drawing Asian magic. Well, this cannot be lacking. After looking at her own list, Qingning lightly tapped on the paper with her fingers. We need to buy hardware, some fabric, cotton, wool, down, and various warm items. Then on the way, one by one, the gas stations buy various types of gasoline. After all, cars can be avoided, and fuel must be stored. After buying, Qingning looked up and saw that it was getting late, so she hurried to the warehouse. The grain station owner told Qingning that the first batch of goods had arrived. Sure enough, when Qingning arrived at the destination, he saw the person unloading the goods, and the boss also helped to keep an eye on them for a while. "Excuse me, boss. You can go back, as long as I'm here," Qingning said politely. "Okay, vegetables and fruits. They won't deliver them until early tomorrow morning, so I'll leave." The boss also left cleanly. Afterwards, there were sporadic deliveries of snacks, hardware, fabrics, cotton, and other items that were later purchased. Qingning had been receiving cars coming and going. Finally, all the things I bought were delivered and placed in the warehouse, leaving only tomorrow's vegetables and fruits. Qingning saw that everyone had left and waited for a while before closing the door. She turned off the surveillance, cut off the electricity, and waited until all the lights went out. She slowly collected the goods with her mind, her body motionless, and saw the goods disappear one by one. I casually classified the items in the space, and Qingning felt a bit dizzy and bloated. After resting for a while, she drank some diluted Lingquan water and finally calmed down. Returning to the hotel, I opened a member's online drive, connected it to the maximum capacity hard drive, and started downloading knowledge. A great person once said that knowledge is productivity, so Qingning must repeat everything that can be downloaded. Find a knowledge platform that can be paid for, directly open a membership unlimited download, and then slowly download it. And Qingning tidied up and rested. The next day was another day of full-blood resurrection. I switched to a different computer, repeated yesterday's operation, and continued to let the computer download automatically. Qingning went out to pick up the goods, and by the time they arrived, the goods had almost been unloaded. Qingning gave them a red envelope. The loading and unloading master left happily, and as the door opened, he began to receive the goods. After finishing the collection, Qingning sat for a while, then closed the door and left. The key was placed in a hidden corner. As for when to tell the boss, let's wait for tomorrow. With nothing to do, Qingning also had some leisure time. She went shopping and bought various clothes, jewelry, bags, and bags. The food city has even bought from the streets at the end of the street. Whether it's delicious or not, they buy a little bit, buy more delicious food, and buy less crowded food. Passing by the milk tea shop, her eyes lit up and she couldn't help but turn her foot in. 10 cups each of the items on the list, half sugar and warm ice are ready. Qingning glanced at the list without blinking and placed the order. Chapter 6. Shopping. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 7. Crossing. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Fur, fresh fur. Hey, young master, come and take a look at this fur. The quality has improved, and making a fur collar is very good. the young master in genie was attracted by the small beast in the cage. A vendor reached out and took a cage, inside which lay a small white ball of fur, with small pointed ears hanging weakly on his head. The whole beast curled up into a lump, its fur soaked in blood, and its small body trembled from time to time, as if it was constantly being hit by pain. Qingning woke up from her confusion, feeling good, painful, and cold. What's going on? Qingning only felt her hands and feet were extremely cold, as if she had lost too much blood. Qingning felt as if she had been grabbed by one hand and said, "Young master, look at this fur." The wealthy young master, dressed in luxurious clothes, quickly dodged and said, "Take it away. Don't even look at this fox, it's not as big as my palm. Can you make a fur collar, and it also shed blood, isn't that deceiving?" The young master left with a disdainful expression on his face, and the expression on the vendor's face suddenly became unsightly. This fox was sent as a companion because it has wounds and cannot be sold. He shook the fox beast in his hand with disappointment, causing the beast to tremble uncontrollably. "Oh my God, don't shake it, it's dying." Qingning felt dizzy and struggled to open her eyes, wanting to see who it was, and kept shaking her. Well, this person is a bit big. From Qingning's perspective, she only feels that this person is incredibly tall. Qingning unconsciously wants to rub her eyes. Wait, there seems to be something wrong. She raised her hand in confusion, her pupils suddenly shrank, and her paw, "My hand, this is not my hand. No matter how you say you are a person, it's impossible for you to have a hairy paw." No, she can't, she dressed like an animal. Qingning wanted to cry without tears, her eyes glazed. I kept thinking back to the excited cries of the vendor, "Mao collars, fresh Mao collars, come and take a look, ladies and gentlemen. A furry collar, what a furry collar." Qingning looked around in confusion, then at herself in the hands of the vendor. She had a somewhat ominous premonition. Sure enough, in the next moment, the vendor's eyes lit up and he stopped a young man in white, directly confronting Qing in front of him. "Young master, look at this. A top-notch fox cub, making a fur collar would be even better." She, with a blue and furry collar, suddenly felt helpless and had a desire to die in her eyes. She was actually dressed up as a small ball of fur that was about to be made into a fur collar, reborn once again, and couldn't even be a human. What sin did she create? "Young master, be careful," said a guard with a sword beside him, whose face slightly changed. The horizontal sword was placed in front of the young master in white. The vendor was so scared that he took a few steps back and said with a smirk, "Well, this young master, the villain didn't do it on purpose." Cough cough, step back, I have nothing to do. The young master in white waved back the guard holding the sword. I looked at the fox beast in the hands of the vendor with great interest. Is this little beast so human-like? What was that look in my eyes just now? I feel a bit hopeless. Do you know you're going to be made into a fur collar? The young master couldn't help but smile at the corner of his mouth. With some amusement, he walked forward and grabbed Qingning from the vendor's hand, holding her in her arms. Qingning trembled all over, feeling hot and cold. If it continued like this, she might have finished her medicine and sent it at the beginning. It was better not to wear it. Hee, young master, take a good look. This fur is definitely top quality, only 5 liang. Take the top quality fur home. The vendor took the opportunity to quickly promote it. 5 liang, the young master in white raised his eyebrows slightly, as if he was somewhat dissatisfied. It's not 4 taels. If it's not possible, the lowest price is 3 taels. Young master, this price can't be lowered anymore. If it's lowered again, I won't be able to survive. The vendor saw that the young master in white was a bit loose, so he quickly spoke up. Alas, ancestors, sell it quickly. If this fox dies, it will be even harder to sell. Yunfei, give it to him. The young master in white held Qingning and gently stroked her soft fur, but only felt the cold body. The young master in white frowned and quickened his pace. The guard quickly threw the silver to the vendor and followed suit. It's so cold, so hot, Qingning knew it was an illusion caused by excessive blood loss. After all, after the extreme cold, she will feel the extreme heat, and then there will be no more, and she will dog again. The young master in white felt Qingning's trembling body and couldn't help but accelerate his pace as he walked into the clinic. The young master is sick and needs to be treated, said the apprentice at the medical school. Seeing the elegantly dressed young master in white carrying a small beast as he walked in, he welcomed him. Well, call a doctor, hurry up, said the young master in white with a furrowed brow and a rapid voice. Hey, okay, the apprentice quickly went to call for someone. Dr. Lu, there's a patient coming. An elderly middle-aged man with long beard walked out and said, Young master, is it you who wants to see a doctor? Dr. Lu was a bit confused, and it didn't seem like the young master was sick. It's not me, it's her, said the young master in white, placing Qingning on the table and looking at Dr. Lu. Dr. Lu said angrily, I'm here to treat people, not animals. Just as the apprentice twisted his back, Dr. Lu gave a difficult smile and looked at the white-clad young master standing behind him as a guard. I can only handle Qingning's wound by hand. While processing, relying on being in the backyard, unable to hear from the front, I began to recite in fragments. I am a doctor who treats people. Why have I fallen into the trap of treating a fox now? It's really unfair in the world, and people's hearts are not ancient. He was full of reluctance, but his hands dared not stop, afraid of being discovered by the young master ahead. Come on, Dr. Lu, it's been a long time since you opened your business. No one sees a doctor, and the same goes for animals. Otherwise, let me see, you have to keep your mouth shut, the apprentice sneered. Dr. Lu's medical skills are not inferior, and he doesn't have much expertise yet. He knows a little about everything and is not proficient in anything, so I've been in their clinic for so long, and there hasn't been much progress. If it weren't for all the other doctors going out for consultations today, it probably wouldn't have been his turn. Dr. Lu pursed his lips tightly, and his family knew about their own affairs. He really needed this job, otherwise he wouldn't even be able to support himself, let alone anything else. Thinking this way, he fell silent and quickly wrapped the little fox, while also dealing with the blood stains on the white fur. After handling it, Dr. Lu couldn't help but admire it. It was indeed a beautiful little beast with excellent appearance, very rare, and I don't know how that young master came about. After handling it, Dr. Lu picked up Qingning, lifted the curtain, and walked out. The young master in white sat elegantly on the bed used for hospitality in the hospital, stained with blood, but it did not destroy his elegant and calm, warm and jade-like temperament at all. Young master, it's already bandaged. Dr. Lu held the hairball in his hand and brought it to the young master's table. Chapter 8. Gongzi Jade. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The young master in white lifted his eyes and saw a small fox as big as a palm, wrapped in a hemp cloth to form a ball. The blood stains had been wiped clean, and the young master nodded in satisfaction, holding Qingning in his arms and waving to the guard Yunfei. Yunfei understood and took out a money bag from his arms, then took out 5 taels of silver and gave it to Dr. Lu. Dr. Lu's eyes were wide open. Oh my goodness, 5 taels of silver. He doesn't even have that much money for 6 months. He quickly picked it up and stuffed it into his arms with a joyful expression on his face. It was really a windfall. Young master, it's getting late. We should go back now. Yunfei looked at the darkened sky and reminded his own young master. Well, let's go. The young master in white stood up with Qingning in his arms and walked outside. Guard Yunfei quickly followed suit. Dr. Lu happily sent them out. If it weren't for being in the wrong place, he would really want to say to the young master that he welcomes him again next time. But at the moment he spoke, he stopped speaking. Isn't that just a curse on others? Who would want to run to the clinic without any worries? He quickly patted his mouth. Lao Lu, you need to be careful with your mouth. You can't speak recklessly. Drive, drive, law, a carriage drove into a solemn-looking palace complex. This is the center of the great Qin dynasty, the Qin Palace. Guard Yunfei drove the carriage back in silence all the way and stopped at a remote palace with 3 big characters written on it. Suyu Palace. Young master, it's already here, Yunfei said respectfully as he turned around and saw that the place had arrived. The young master in white lifted the car curtain and walked down. He was choked by the cold wind rushing towards him, unable to control himself, he coughed uncontrollably, cough cough cough. He furrowed his pretty eyebrows and eyes, looking extremely uncomfortable. Yo, isn't this the 6th brother of the 6 seedling? Why did he come back so late and not be afraid of being locked outside the palace gate? A male voice came in. A man in splendid attire, about the same age as the young master in white, walked out of the nearby palace. With a mocking expression on his face, he couldn't wait to speak sarcastically, indicating that he wasn't easy to get along with. Cough, it turns out it's 7th brother. It's getting late, I should take some medicine now, so I won't reminisce with 7th brother anymore. The young master in white glanced lightly at the man, as if he had not understood the sarcasm in his voice, and walked straight towards the hall. You, Gongzi you, wait for me. The man looked angry and displeased as he looked at the calm and carefree face. Why is it that he is Lao Chi, who only needs less than a pillar of incense in his martial arts? Lao Lu and his mother's consort must have falsely reported the time, but he heard that Lao Lu and his mother's consort reported it after his mother's consort, but the result was just 1 incense stick born earlier than him. There must be a ghost inside. Oh, what's wrong with being in front of me? It's not that I'm not favored, living in this dilapidated palace. He was about to kick on the palace gate, but the door happened to open. He grabbed it, slipped his leg, and split a fork. Oh, it hurts me so much. Yunfei, how dare you plan to harm me, young master? Yunfei, who opened the door, looked worried and said, Young master, I forgot to take my things. He quickly picked up the basket by the door and walked towards the hall. 7 young masters, I'm going to close the door, Yunfei seemed a bit embarrassed. What are you still doing in a daze? Hurry up and help me up, said the 7th young master with a proud expression on his face. Ah, this, I dare not. If there's anything, I can't afford it, Yunfei chuckled and quickly closed the door and left. You wait for me, said the 7th prince, his face flushed with anger, like a swollen pufferfish, swearing and shouting loudly. After a while, a few servants finally rushed out of the nearby palace and carried the 7th prince back. You're talking to him again, young master Yu was giving his old clothes to Qingning's bed when he saw Yunfei come in and casually said. Didn't I just open the door right now? Who knew 7th young master was behind the door, Yunfei chuckled. Gongzi Yu's eyes twitched and he said, It's okay, don't let anyone grab the handle. He gently shook his head without any reprimand. Yunfei exclaimed, picked up the jar, and went to decoct the medicine. Gongzi Yu slightly raised the corner of her mouth and gently caressed Qingning, who was sleeping obediently in the pile of old clothes. I finally felt a hint of warmth from her small body. He couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. It seems like you should be able to survive, little one. Well, I can give you a name. What's your name, Dabai? No, it's better to be a novice. It's so small, I don't know if it has a full moon. Gongzi Yu is a bit worried. What should such a small fox eat? It shouldn't be able to eat meat. Is that milk? It seems that we need to prepare some animal milk tomorrow. Gongzi Yu stroked and caressed, but his movements were extremely gentle. Obviously, he liked this little beast very much, otherwise he wouldn't have brought it back. Young master, it's time to take some medicine. Yunfei brought a bowl of medicine on a tray. Gongzi Yu let out a sigh, took the medicine bowl, and swallowed it without hesitation. Whoever drinks medicine needs to take a spoonful, isn't it bitter? After drinking the medicine, Yunfei angrily took out a meal, young master, the dining room is becoming more and more perfunctory. Isn't this just a trick on people? Watching the increasingly simple meals, he felt very aggrieved for his own young master. They are all princes, even if their young masters are not favored, there is no need to be so neglected. These people are so narrow-minded. Humph, one day, Yun Fei didn't continue. He knew what to say and what not to say. It doesn't matter, originally I also had a lot of dietary restrictions due to medication. It doesn't make much difference to have one more dish or one less dish. Gongzi Yu picked up chopsticks with a good temper, picked up the boiled vegetables, ate them, ate a little casually, filled his stomach, and then stopped eating. Yun Fei wanted to persuade him, but he knew very well that his young master's seemingly gentle and elegant temperament was actually very stubborn, so I reluctantly packed my things and retreated. Qingning kicked her arms and legs in her sleep, walked away, I don't want to be made into a fur collar. Woo-woo, it's so scary. Qingning kept running in her dream, and when she realized it, her body turned into 4 claws, like swimming, occasionally sliding. Gongzi Yu's eyes lit up slightly, and his slender, jade-like hand with distinct joints reached out to grab Qingning's little paw, carefully pinched. The soft meat cushion still had a pink color, and against the backdrop of white fur, it became even more pink and tender. Gongzi Yu couldn't help but feel happy and rubbed Qingning's small head. Take good care of yourself, you must get better. I don't want you to really become a furry collar, young master Yu said with a smile. Qingning seemed to feel threatened and couldn't help but shake her body lightly. Why do you suddenly feel a little cold? Chapter 9. Wake up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the magnificent yet slightly spacious palace, amidst a pile of old clothes piled up in a small nest, a white furry little fox, the size of a palm, curled up in a small ball. My belly floated gently, and the warm sunlight outside the window cast a dazzling golden light on my white fur. Gongzi Yu opened the door and walked in, holding a small bowl in his hand, followed by the guard Yun Fei. Young master, why don't I come? After all, it's a small wild beast from outside, and its wild nature must be very difficult to tame. Yun Fei wanted to take the bowl over. No need, such a small one, why can't I? Young master Yu smiled dumbfounded and refused Yun Fei's request. Place the medicine bowl on the table, pick up the little fox Qingning and place it on her lap. Gently pry open her small mouth with your hand, and a spoonful of animal milk is poured in one by one. Well, what is this? Qingning, who was sleeping, felt like something had been poured into her mouth. It's light, but also carries a strong milk aroma, making Qingning a bit unappealing. But the body felt its own need for energy and couldn't help but swallow it. Upon seeing this, Gongzi Yu chuckled lightly and scooped another spoonful, pouring it into her mouth. In no time, the animal milk in the small bowl was used up. Gongzi Yu touched Qingning's little belly, which was no longer dry, with his hand, and slightly relieved himself. It should be full now. Qingning, who had eaten her fill, exuded a warm aura all over her body, and her whole body softened. After a while, Qingning finally struggled to open her eyes. The morning sunshine still emitted warmth, and she half squinted her eyes to look. A tall and upright young man sat on a small couch in front, elegant as jade, with handsome eyebrows and eyes, sword eyebrows and starry eyes, deep eye sockets, and slightly raised eye tips. The high and straight nose bridge brings an undeniable aggressiveness, while the facial features soften this feeling. Well, she's really a handsome guy and a beautiful woman. Qingning couldn't help but exclaim in admiration for her beauty, but what came out of her mouth was the sound of fox, fox, fox. Wait a moment, is there something wrong? Qingning's eyes widened with admiration, her pupils tightened, and she couldn't speak anymore. When she spoke again, there was another wave of fox and fox. Qingning finally realized something was wrong, and her dusty mind finally remembered that she had traveled through time and dressed up as a fox, still an unborn fox that had been sold. She lowered her head and finally saw the fur claws on her body, the pink flesh cushion, and the small soft claws. which looked very easy to grip. Dressed as a fox, she wanted to ask her family if she could still become a human. She seemed to have seen a brief beast born as a fox. Qingning lay helpless on her paws, her two little paws covering her head, concealing her sad eyes. Awakened, young Master Yu walked over with a smile, picked up Qingning, placed her on her lap, and gently stroked her soft and warm fur, masturbating from head to tail. "Well, it's so comfortable. So, does it feel like being groomed? No wonder the neighbor's little dog likes to rub her fur so much." Qingning realized what she was thinking and gave a wake-up call. But suddenly I felt that being a beast was not a bad thing. It was raised by someone, so there was no need to worry about not eating or drinking. There was also a free house to live in. Moreover, she looked up at the handsome guy in front of her, her head full of starry eyes. She felt that this was too good. If she were a person, how could she meet such a handsome beauty, let alone be held in his arms? Forget it, it's pretty good. Is this welfare package also good? Judging from the fact that this little brother lives in a big place, he should not lack her food. After eating and drinking, it was also good to finish the beast's life. Thinking about it, Qingning couldn't help but relax and spread her paws, starting to rot. Rubbing her head against a fair jade-like, slender beauty's hand, touch and touch again, I always like it. Gongzi you couldn't help but chuckle lightly. He was such an interesting little beast. He watched as the little fox went from being unattainable to accepting reality, and then to enjoying itself now. I even feel that this little fox is really human-like, it seems very smart. It's okay, with her around, I think the days ahead will be very lively. The warm and gentle sunshine shone on each person and beast by the window, but it was gentle and enchanting. "Young master, someone from the king's side has come over," Yun Fei poked his head out from outside and whispered. Gongzi Yu nodded, indicating that he knew. He placed Qingning on the soft cushion next to him and rubbed her little head. "Be good, don't make a sound," he said. He spoke softly and looked at the door with a faint gaze. "I have seen the 6 young masters." A young eunuch dressed in dark imperial robes walked in from the door and stood below. There was a habitual haughty expression on his face, and even when he saw Gongzi Yu, he didn't show much concern. Gongzi Yu knows that the people around the king are like this. After all, serving by the king's side naturally makes him feel superior. Does Father Wang have any orders?" Gongzi Yu turned around and looked at the eunuch. "The king issued an order to all the young masters to come and meet at the same time tomorrow. 6 young masters, the king has summoned all the young masters tomorrow, hoping that they will arrive on time." After the eunuch finished speaking, he turned around on his own and walked out of the door, leaving. At the hour of Chen, will the court discuss the future? Young Master Yu pondered, but he didn't know what was going on. Young Master, how could the king suddenly summon all the young masters? Before this, only when festivals came every year would they be summoned. Yun Fei scratched his head and counted the days in his heart. Today is the 8th day of the 6th lunar month, and there aren't many holidays. Your young master and I should have made up for it. After all, it's never easy to surpass me and call the young master below. Gongzi Yu doesn't care about this. After all, in these years, he has been in the palace with a somewhat transparent meaning, and the king rarely thinks of him. This time, it should be other young masters who will go, that's why he was summoned. Young master, what does it mean to make up numbers? Isn't that what you're saying? What kind of thinness? Yun Fei couldn't remember what to say for a moment. It's self-deprecating, asking you to read more books. I've never heard of it before. Young Master Yu smiled as he looked at Yun Fei. Yun Fei looked bitter and said, Young Master, you don't know. When I read that book, it's like reading a heavenly book, and I fall asleep at the first glance, and how thick the book is. I can't even read a simple book. Yun Fei refused with a face. This book is not something he can read, it's really too difficult. It's too difficult for him. Gongzi Yu couldn't help but twitch slightly from the corner of his eye, he couldn't move it. He had said it many times before, Yun Fei still goes his own way. Whenever he talks about reading, he has to hide. Young master, I'll go get the meal, Yun Fei said to himself, applying oil on his feet and running out. Gongzi's expression was as expected. It's just that he can't be forced, otherwise Yun Fei could run out and hide for a day. Gongzi rubbed her eyebrows with a headache. It's really hard for a child to teach. Chapter 10. Summoning by the King. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Little fox, why can't Yun Fei go to school? Gongzi murmured to Qingning. Qingning opened her small mouth and yawned with a delicate expression, secretly harboring resentment in her heart. What's wrong with this? There are many children with learning aversion, even adults cannot learn after the golden time of learning. Otherwise, the college entrance examination wouldn't be set at the age of 18 or 19. No matter how old you are, you really can't get into school. Gongzi rubbed Qingning's small head with his hands and tilted her upside down. Qingning had a bewildered expression on her face. What's wrong? Why did she suddenly leave me? Gongzi lowered her voice and smiled calmly, with a smile in her eyes. She was so cute, even yawning was cute and tight. Are you tired? Go to sleep. Young master Yu gently placed Qingning on her clothes, and Qingning also felt tired. I didn't refuse either. My claws were placed under my head, my eyes slowly closed, and soon I fell asleep. And within her body, which she couldn't feel, an unknown force gradually repaired her weak body. The next day, Gongzi changed his clothes to a new one, although he had no objections to what to wear. But Yun Fei did. He believed that after finally meeting the king, he must take out the best clothes of the young master. Even he changed into the new clothes he couldn't bear to wear before. He can't embarrass the young master. Don't think he doesn't know, those guards are cute and comparable. Last time during the festival, a group of guards gathered together and even mocked the guards wearing old clothes. This time, he must not embarrass the young master. Yun Fei's face was firm, and his footsteps couldn't help but become heavy. Gongzi looked at Yun Fei's solemn expression and couldn't help but laugh as she shook her head and passed by Qingning's side. My hand couldn't help but extend out and rubbed Qingning's small head. Qingning rubbed against Prince Yu's slender and jade-like hand in her sleep, turned around, hugged her tail, and fell asleep again. Gongzi walked out of the door and saw the seventh prince, Gongzi Guang, also dressed in splendid attire, walking out. Humph! As soon as he saw Gongzi Guang let out a cold snort. He just couldn't stand Gongzi. The couple's holiday ended from birth. Gongzi paid no attention to the cold face of the seventh prince. After all, he never wasted his emotions on outsiders. Rare young Master Guang, there is no intention of causing trouble today. After all, he also knows the importance and importance. If it delays his time, wouldn't it delay him from meeting his father? Among the young masters, he is relatively favored, but the king cannot often see him. He has not yet passed the imperial examination and has not received any orders, so it's usually not possible to see the father king. Thinking of this, he disdainfully glanced at the young master Yu. Oh, even if he's ranked higher than him, what's going on? It's not even difficult to see Father Wang once, only Father Wang can summon him, so he instantly felt a sense of superiority, held his head high and pushed Yun Fei away, glanced sideways at young Master Yu, and took steps forward. Yun Fei looked confused. What's wrong? Why squeeze him? The road is so wide. Gongzi Guang's guards quickly followed up. Gongzi patted Yun Fei's shoulder and said, "Let's go, it's getting late." Oh, young master, let's set off quickly. We can't be late. Yun Fei looked at the time and became anxious, quickly urging Gongzi to leave. Gongzi nodded and walked forward. When we arrived at the back hall of the Chaui Hall, as expected, all the young masters had arrived almost. Young Master Yu Huan glanced around and greeted with a smile. Some other young masters nodded at them, while others ignored them, such as the seventh young master, Gongzi Guang. It can be said that it was a one-sided revenge. Gongzi couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. I really don't know why, but this seventh younger brother doesn't like to see him. he admitted that he had never offended him, and he blinked in confusion. However, the seventh younger brother has always been very proud, and among these brothers, there are not many who he likes and have a good attitude. Well, the young master approached the third young master Yuan with an eager expression on his face, talking and laughing. It was really lively. 3, 4, 7, 8, Gongzi Yu looked at all the young masters who had already arrived, except for the premature death of the fifth young master. Young master, why hasn't second young master come? Young master Yu murmured softly, and a hint of doubt appeared in his eyes. He looked at the young masters and suddenly a thought came to his mind, as if they were all unmarried young masters. 3 to 8 young masters, none of whom have been married, is it related to this? After all, the ninth prince is 14 years old and can still wait for a few years, while the eighth prince is only half a year away from him, so he can still get married. Gongzi Yu frowned and fell into deep thought. If that were the case, he would have to think about how to refuse. He has no intention of getting married at all. He is quite good alone and has a strong sense of territory. He completely dislikes the approach of strangers. So, he didn't accept the idea of a stranger entering his territory, and Yun Fei gradually became acquainted with him because he had been with him since childhood. Adding another one, let alone being of the opposite sex, young Master Yu refused with a strong expression on his face. It was impossible, he was very unwilling. Inside the palace, the young eunuch who came in from outside the door whispered a few words in the ear of the eunuch nodded and waved to let him step down, while the young eunuch left with a respectful expression on his face. The eunuch looked at the king of Qin sitting on top and saw him stop reading the bamboo slips. He picked up a wine bottle and quickly stepped forward, pouring another glass. Your Majesty, the young masters have arrived, said the eunuch respectfully. The king of Qin looked up at the main hall door and saw the figures outside. He casually said, call them in. Here, the eunuch responded and walked towards the door. The king has an edict to summon all the young masters to come and meet. The eunuch walked out of the palace door and spoke to the young masters. The third young master took the lead in walking towards the palace, and all the young masters followed behind. Young Master Yu was about to walk inside when seventh young master walked in ahead of him with a proud expression on his face. Hey, seven brother. Eighth young master Fei's eyes couldn't help but widen, and his eyebrows furrowed. Seven brother was too unruly. Gongzi Yu walked indifferently towards the palace, followed closely by the eighth prince. The king of Qin inside the palace looked at the young masters who walked in one by one, suddenly furrowed his brow. He wondered what was going on with old 7, who had no rules at all and didn't follow behind old 6. The royal family already values rules, and the current king of Qin has a dignified and rigorous temperament. He values rules even more in his eyes, and he will never allow such things to happen. Old 7, the king of Qin spoke with a serious expression on his face. Gongzi Guang felt a sense of joy in his heart and took a few steps forward, saying, my son is here. Go out, come back in. The king of Qin looked at him and frowned. Ah, the young master looked bewildered. Why did he go out and then come back in? Father, the young master couldn't help but want to say something. A hint of impatience flashed in the eyes of King Qin. Get out, don't let me say it again.